Hello and welcome to Love Anything Art. Today I have a fun project for you. It's actually a couple of different projects, but I was tinkering around and I came up with these and I was filming it while I was doing it, so I just thought I would share this with you. I think they are some of my best pieces. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but I just really love the patterns and designs that came out of this. I've been really into trying to make stones lately, so this is just a spin on that. I'm going to be using some translucent clay. I do recommend Premo, but you can use other brands if you want. Premo is just a bit firmer, I think, and I kind of like it. It's a little less sticky than some of the other ones, but you can use whatever you want. Just play around and see what you like. I'll be using some alcohol inks in this project. Originally, when I started doing this, I was trying to not use a lot of clay. I wanted to do a very small project, make like 2, maybe 3 pieces, but it went way beyond that for me. I made a whole bunch of pieces. Oh my gosh. It took me days to cut out the shapes, kind of perfect them, and make sure no fingerprints or no little gashes were in it, and completely smooth, and then baking them and then resining them. Resining is a very time-consuming process, and I have a bigger machine that was bought for me, but it still takes so long. But I just popped in some podcasts and listened to those, but it really took me days. It actually took me days to film this too. So I kind of filmed it over a couple of days, so you'll notice that I'm kind of scatterbrained throughout, so I'll try my best to explain what's going on. So I used some pink and some purple. I think it was lilac and bubblegum. You can use whatever colors you want, of course, but these were really pretty once they were mixed up. So I'm rolling up the purple one and then just kind of rolling it out a little bit thinner. The pink is meant to be wrapped around the purple. I actually started doing this and then had to make more pink because I didn't have enough pink to go around the purple, and then I still didn't have enough pink to go around the purple, but it came out all right in the end. And it doesn't have to be perfect because stones aren't perfect. They're very imperfect, and every one of them is just random, so it's okay if things just don't quite add up. Wrapping the pink around the purple and then just kind of rolling it out a little bit thinner. And I'm trying to go from a thinner side to a thicker side. Not a really big difference. I'm going to be using some amber translucent clay. I had this in my drawer and was like, you know what? I'm going to try this out with this and see with mixing some colors with it, because it's going to come out a little different because it's a amber translucent clay. So I'm going to be using some of that bubblegum on top of that again, and you'll see the difference in colors. This one's a way different pink color. It came out way different than the other one. They're both pretty in their own rights, but I'm going to wrap that one around the pink and the purple and roll that out again. And then once again, I am going to be taking some more amber clay, the amber translucent clay, just a little bit of that again. I'm going to be using gold on this one. And really, you can make your colors as dark or as light as you want them. I think stones vary in colors, so you could do maybe a half of a lighter color and a little bit more of a darker color, or vice versa, and then kind of mix them up, because a lot of stones have both light and dark. Some stones are light. It just depends on what its chemical makeup is. So I'm going to mix that up really good, and this is a nice golden color, I think. And I like outlining when I'm doing a lot of these stones. So I'll take a piece of clay and then color it, and then also put the outside another color, kind of sandwiching it. So I'm going to put the gold just on the outside on one side, and then I'll flip it over once that's dry, and then do it again on the other side. I just think anything that you can add to it is going to add a lot of depth and dimension to your pieces. So I think really it's all about playing around and just keep adding and building and adding and building. I'll take that and then cut it up into little pieces. At this point, the size of the pieces you make don't really matter, and it doesn't matter the shape or anything like that. Just start chopping. I'm going to be using some of this makeup powder. It's just a white shimmer powder. You can use whatever you want, or if you don't want to do this, you can skip that too. If you like the idea but don't have all of these tools and things that I'm using, you can always substitute it with whatever you have on hand. Just kind of use your imagination and go with it. Again, this is just kind of building up the layers and adding more depth and detail to the pieces. So I have those nice, well and coated. I got my rolled out clay. I decided to go ahead and coat my rolled out clay in this lilac purple, which is the same lilac color I used in the very center of this piece when I was rolling it up. But of course it's going to come out a little different because it's got the pink background. Just again, building up my colors, just playing and having fun, just seeing what kind of comes out. I've really been into using this snow white color, so you can use whatever you want on yours, but if you have like a shimmer powder or another lighter color, you don't want to put a dark on a dark. So if you're using a darker clay and you're not going to be using gold, then you could use a lighter color and then a darker color, coating it on the outside. I just want to dab a little bit of color here and there, just little flecks of color. I found that this really worked in a couple of the other projects that I did, so just lightly dabbing it. I don't want to cover the entire outside. I don't want to make it purple. I don't want that to be like a dominant color in there. I just want to kind of add little accents to it. And it kind of ties in with the colors that are already in my piece. I'll do the same with the bubble gum. I just thought we'd just take a break here and watch my cat clean herself, because she was right behind me on her little box. She has to be right beside me. And she was just cleaning herself. I just find it so relaxing to watch cats bathe. They're just totally into what they're doing until you kind of scare them a little bit. She was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here, guys? Oh boy, oh boy. I disturbed her. I'll let her be. All right, I have my choppy pieces set aside, and I'm gonna work on my snake of clay that I have rolled out. I'm gonna be doing kind of a couple of different things from this point forward. I realized I was gonna have a whole bunch of clay, and I didn't have a backing for my clay, and I didn't want to put more clay into the project, so I kind of was just branching out and just trying a bunch of different things. So I'll kind of walk you through it. I'm chopping off a couple of pieces which were originally intended for this project. I wanted a couple of different varying sizes in dimensions, so some thinner ones going up to thicker ones. I'll set those aside. And then these are the pieces I thought I was going to have left over. So I'm going to make a backing out of my extras here. You could also just kind of do this as the project if you really like this pattern idea. So I just chopped those, or sliced those into sections, putting them together. Basically, I'm going to make a veneer out of that, put them all together and burnish it really well. And this is the piece that I came up with. This was actually too thin, or actually not long enough, so I had to add some more on the end. So you might notice this piece is gradually growing. so I added a little bit more to it, but no biggie. Back to those pieces I set aside, I started to slice those up, and I wanted them to be relatively the same thickness, even though they weren't the same width. So I'm just using a piece to measure each cut. And again, I will set those aside. I do that a couple of times. And then with the extras I have here, I thought it would be kind of adding a little bit more to the dimension of the piece and different colors in there. So I'm going to take these, I'm going to chop them up. I wanted to kind of take each little section and chop it up into fours, but honestly you can chop it up however you want to. I wanted to keep these colors separate from the previous ones I just chopped up and then dabbed on the purple and the pink. So eventually they're all going to get mixed together, but I wanted the colors on the outside of each of those chopped pieces to be different. So that's why I didn't chop these up with the other ones. So just kind of chop them up. And I'm finally setting that piece aside. I should have set it aside a long time ago, but I was just really into what I was doing. I'm putting those chopped pieces on my tinfoil with the other chopped pieces that are done. And again, on these, I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to add some of the shimmer powder to the outside and coat it really well. And then adding on some gold on the outside of that, kind of tying in the colors all together, mixing that up really, really well. I really like the gold and the pink together in that. It looked really pretty. Once that's dry, I'm going to mix both of those chopped piles together. I'm pulling back those pieces I set aside earlier. So I have my chopped pieces, I have my sliced pieces that are the different thickness and different width. And then the piece that I made earlier into a veneer, it's going to be the backing kind of for the clay. This ultimately comes out with 3 different styles all in one basically cane that I made. So I want it to spread those out. I want gaps or holes to be left all around the pieces. And then again, I realized that my piece wasn't going to be big enough, so I had to add some more of them on there and burnish it to make the piece a little bit wider. I didn't show that because it was the same thing I did earlier, but basically I just needed that backing to be larger so I could use all of my circular pieces. And I needed to chop up the pieces that I had chopped already into even smaller pieces so I could fit them all in those gaps and those holes. Just want to tuck them as best as you can inside, all around, not covering the little circular pieces in there, but just tucking it all in there so that you make sure each spot is completely filled. And kind of squish it and play with it. I spent way too much time squishing and playing. I just get really lost in the clay sometimes. But you just keep going. Just get it however you want it. Just make sure all the pieces are stuck together, that there's not going to be any large gaps anywhere or holes or air pockets or anything like that. And then you can put it in the freezer for a few minutes or 10 or 20 and forget about it like I do. And then this will make it easier for slicing, especially right now in the summertime. because it's super hot with the lights on and everything else and my body heat. So just slicing them off. It doesn't matter how thin or thick they are. Personal preference, I do prefer them to be a little bit thinner for this project because I want the backing that I'm going to put it on again to be showing through and kind of changing the colors of the top piece. So I shaved off as much as I could from one side. So that was one side of the cane. And then I flipped it over and I'm going to do the other side. And what I like about this idea is that once you shave so much off from the front and the back, you're going to have the part where they were kind of combined together, which is this little section. So you're going to get lots of different patterns in there. The pattern from the front and the pattern from the back. So it was really fun. And I am using all of my clay. I did not want an ounce of leftover clay. I have so much already that I just need to make sure after each project that I am using everything. And honestly, I love using the scraps. So these are all the extra pieces, but they come out with the most unique and beautiful pieces. I'm actually going to use this. I'm gonna make a solid color out of this. This is the color that it made. I think it's quite pretty, but I do need to stretch this clay out further. So I'm gonna use a little bit of translucent, and this is the Sculpey brand. I ran out of the Premo, so I just went ahead and used this instead. It comes out fine. It's also gonna dilute the color a little bit, but the color that it comes out with in the end is pretty. This is it. It's kind of like a mauve color. I don't know. It's very light. I love it. I'm gonna use this as a backing for one of my veneers I'm gonna make. So I have 3 different piles going here. You can't see the top one that well, but I do have 3 piles. What I'm going to do is make a veneer with one side that came from the cane. I'm going to make a veneer with the other side. And then I'm going to make a veneer with the 2 that came together kind of in the middle. So both of the patterns are together. And I'm kind of playing with that. So I'm just stacking them on there. And you can kind of see overlapping the 2 different patterns together. So here are all of the veneers I came up with, and I'll describe them in a minute once I kind of lay them all out here for you. I wanted to show you each individual one. You'll see that each one comes out very different depending on how it's stacked and the color that you use for your backing. So these are all of the different things that I come up with. So I have this first one here. And this is actually a combination of this one and this one. So it was shaved off pieces, just kind of randomly stacked, whatever was pleasing to my eye. And I put them on a translucent piece of clay that I colored. And then of course those 2 are the separate patterns. And then these 2 are a combination of these 2. But the difference between these are that I changed the backing. I used like a solid charcoal color for this one. So I was interested to see, you know, kind of how it came out. And it does come out way darker. And then these are the colors on the back of each of those. So each one's going to be a lot different, because the backings are different and because of how I stacked each of the slices. So I am going to burnish them because I hadn't burnished them yet, and then I'll come back on and show you here in just a second. So even after burnishing them, it kind of flattens the clay even more and it pushes that color that's the backing through because it's translucent on the top. So those colors are going to push through. And then I'm just kind of showing you each one. I love the different patterns that came out with these. The gold in there was a very dominant color in some of these. This right here, the pink, is really going to be interesting to see once it's baked, what it looks like. And I was actually surprised at the color that it came out to be. You see that one? This one is, I can't decide which one's my favorite, but I don't know. This one looks really cool. All right, so I cut out shapes and burnished them and made pieces and resined them, and these are them. So these are that pattern. These are all the pieces I made from that. And then the next ones are this pattern. They came out completely different. The colors changed quite a bit. I love it. Each one is just so unique, I think. You could play with this all day long. That one is my favorite, I think. And this is a combination of that top piece, the previous one, and the bottom piece is the next one. Just a kind of fun little thing. And this is the pieces that I made from that pattern. You'll see I made a couple little pieces here. And this is the next pattern. And these are the pieces that I made from it. The color definitely changed with that backing, but I love it. And then this is the last pattern, and these are the pieces that came out from that. Very dark in comparison to the other ones. You can't really see a whole lot of detail unless you get up kind of close, and then you can see it. I really like the way this one came out. And just an itty bitty tiny pair. And these pieces are the scraps. I took the scraps, chopped them up, added ink, and then just cut out shapes and resined them. They came out really, really pretty, and I used up all of my clay. I'm so proud. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!